I still remember the day Karen first showed up at my front gate, striding like she owned the place. Mid-40s, designer sunglasses perched on her nose, and that kind of confidence that made people uncomfortable. She smiled at me in a way that suggested she already believed victory was hers. "You know," she said, twirling her car keys, "my great-grandfather actually owned this land. Before your family did." I froze, coffee mug halfway to my lips. "Excuse me." Karen leaned closer, lowering her voice like she was sharing a scandalous secret. "Yeah, your house, the backyard, even that old oak tree. You have no idea who really owns it." I swallowed hard, forcing a laugh I didn't feel. "I think I'd notice if there were some legal claim on my property." Her smile didn't falter. "That's the thing, you wouldn't. I've been researching this for years." She reached into her bag and pulled out a stack of papers, handing them to me. Family archives, deeds, court records. Everything. You're on land that's rightfully mine. I flipped through the pages, feeling a pit form in my stomach. It was all so detailed, so convincing at first glance. Names, dates, maps. My grandfather had always told stories about this land, about how our family had fought to keep it through tough times, and now some stranger was standing here claiming it. "Look," I said carefully, "I'm not saying you're wrong about your ancestor owning land somewhere, but my family has held this property for 3 generations. I think you need to verify your records before making accusations." Karen's eyebrows shot up. "Verify? I've already done that. These records don't lie. My family has a right to this land. You can't just ignore history." I felt the tension rising, the blood in my ears. This wasn't just about property. It was about identity, heritage, and the idea that someone could just rewrite history to suit themselves. "I understand your connection to your family history," I said slowly. "But that doesn't give anyone the right to take what my family worked for. There are legal ways to handle claims, but this," I gestured to the stack of papers. "This isn't enough. Not yet." Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. "I guess we'll see about that," she said, turning on her heel. She left behind the papers on my porch like a gauntlet. I stared at them, heart racing, hands trembling slightly. Something about those documents bothered me. They were too neat, too perfect, too rehearsed. My gut told me there was more to this story. I needed proof. Not rumors, not family tales, not old deeds that could have been forged. I needed history itself, and that's when I decided to dig into the archives. To trace every record, every map, every signature. If Karen thought she could scare me with her claim, she was about to find out how stubborn the truth could be. Little did I know, what I'd uncover in those dusty archives would shock even me, and it would change how I looked at Karen forever. "If you want the new?" Morning, I woke up with a single thought echoing in my head. I need proof. Karen's papers had rattled me more than I wanted to admit, but something about them screamed too neat. I grabbed my notebook, my laptop and a flashlight, and headed to the city archives, a dusty, dimly lit building that smelled like old paper and ink. "Morning," the archivist greeted, peering over her glasses. "You're back for more?" I smiled weakly. "Yeah, I need to trace a property claim." "And I mean trace it all the way back." She nodded knowingly. "People come in for all sorts of reasons." "Good luck." Hours passed. I sifted through yellowed deeds, maps with corners folded over, and court records that had barely survived the decades. Page after page told a story. Our family had bought this land legally, paying in cash, recording every transaction, enduring lawsuits from other neighbors along the way. Each document I pulled seemed to strengthen our claim, but Karen's records gnawed at the back of my mind. They had dates, signatures, even notary stamps that looked authentic at first glance. Then I found it, a small footnote in a ledger from 1892. A tiny, almost invisible line that referred to a transfer voided by default. My heart raced as I traced it. It pointed directly to the plot Karen claimed, but the transfer had been canceled due to a clerical error, corrected and legally finalized in my family's name. Karen's ancestor never actually owned it. I leaned back in my chair, stunned. This was it, the proof I needed. But then came the harder part, confronting her. I didn't want to start a war, but I couldn't just let her accusations hang in the air like a threat. I called her, keeping my voice calm. Karen, I looked through the archives, I said. Every single document you provided me, I verified them. Your ancestor never legally owned this land. The transfer was voided. Your claim, it doesn't hold up. There was a long pause on the other end. Then her voice, slightly tight, slightly faltering. I don't understand. The records I found, they seem so clear. I exhaled. I know, I get it. History can be messy. But the legal facts are what matter now. This land belongs to my family. Not because I want it, but because it's been ours for generations. She started, then stopped. I could hear the frustration, the disappointment, even the embarrassment in her tone. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Maybe now you understand why it's important to check the full story before making accusations. Sometimes history can mislead us, especially when we don't have the full picture. She hung up without another word, and for the first time I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief because our family's legacy was intact, and sadness because Karen's claim, however misguided, came from a deep connection to her own past. I realized then that stories like these aren't just about land or ownership. They're about memory, identity, and the truths we cling to. And the hardest thing isn't proving the truth, it's facing the emotions tangled up in it. But one thing was clear. Karen's claim had collapsed, and I had the archives to prove it. Yet, as I left the building, I couldn't shake the feeling that this story wasn't over. History had a way of hiding surprises, and I wasn't done digging yet. If you want, I can write. A week later, Karen returned. I wasn't sure if she came to apologize, argue, or simply watch me crumble under her accusation. But when I opened the door, I saw something I hadn't expected. Hesitation. For the first time, she didn't stride in like she owned the world. I checked the archives again, she said quietly, her voice lacking its usual edge. I thought I understood history, but I guess I was wrong. I gestured for her to sit. Karen, it's okay. I know your family has stories, memories. You wanted to believe them. But history is complicated. And sometimes our ancestors' actions don't match the legends we tell ourselves. She looked down at her hands, twisting a crumpled piece of paper. I wanted to feel connected to my family, you know? Like I mattered to history. Her vulnerability hit me harder than any argument ever could. You do matter, I said softly. But you can't rewrite the past to give yourself that feeling. You have to face it and still make your mark in the present. She nodded slowly, as if weighing every word. I guess I lost sight of that. We spent the next hour going over the records, comparing dates, signatures, and maps. I showed her the ledger footnote. I'd found the one that proved her ancestor never legally owned the land. Her expression shifted from disbelief to shock, then finally to understanding. I never realized. I thought my family history was this solid, unshakable thing. But it's messy, she admitted. History always is, I said. It's full of mistakes, corrections, and forgotten details. That's why it's so important to verify before making claims. Not just for land, but for life decisions, too. Karen took a deep breath and looked out at the backyard, the old oak tree, the swing my grandfather had built, the garden my family had nurtured for decades. It's beautiful. And it's yours, she said finally. Yes, I said, feeling a weight lift off my chest. And it's not just about ownership. It's about respect. Respect for history, truth, and the people who came before us. She smiled faintly. I understand now. I guess I got carried away chasing a story I wanted to believe. I nodded. We all do sometimes. But the real lesson is learning from it, not letting it control us. Karen stood, offering a hand. Thank you for showing me the truth without turning it into a battle. I shook her hand. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones within ourselves. Just make sure your next story, whatever it is built on truth, not assumption. As she walked away, I looked out over the land my family had fought to protect. It wasn't just dirt and trees. It was memory, history, and life itself. And I realized the real victory wasn't in proving her wrong, it was in uncovering the truth and sharing it. To anyone watching this story, always seek the truth. Check the facts, respect history. And remember, what we inherit isn't just property, it's responsibility. Because how we honor it defines who we are.